Yeah. Okay, so we're holding towards the end of Perek Shlishi. We're pretty much going to finish today the Perek, the chapter in Pirkei Avot. Mishnah Yud Zayin and Mishnah Yud Chet. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Im en Torah en derech eretz. As much as derech eretz is something that we're taught that is very important, proper conduct, to conduct oneself properly amongst one's peers, to have a good relationship with one's spouse. Derech eretz, even though it actually means several things, here it means good character, good midot, to be a good-natured person. And the Mishnah is telling us something very interesting, that it appears a little bit puzzling, that if one does not have Torah, it is not possible to have derech eretz. And we have to understand, why do we need Torah to have derech eretz? There are many classes that the Goyim have to teach derech eretz. There are some people who are born inclined to be good-natured. And here the Mishnah is making a very important statement, that in en Torah there's no derech eretz. So we have to understand what's the message here. Various ideas are being expressed here. Number one, if one does not have Torah, then one cannot know how to use the various midot, the various characteristics properly. At what should one be upset at? To be upset is a midah. Anger is not a good midah, but it needs to be used occasionally, at least externally. We have to show that we are upset, not internally. Nothing should really make us very, very angry. Who are we to get angry? Most things, it doesn't pay to get angry over. They're beyond our control. But every midah, even laziness, right? To be lazy. Is laziness good? Huh? Tanbal. Huh? Now I woke you up. Yeah. Is that a good midah? Sometimes, yeah. To be lazy from eating 7-layer cake. Be lazy from doing things that are not good, are not healthy for you. Every midah can be used somehow. How do we know when to use it, how much of it to use it? So in en Torah, if there's no Torah, how are we going to be guided to properly use midot? What can I do? What can I not do? What is ethical? What is not ethical? Ethics is derech eretz. Ethics and morals and all of that. What is proper? What is not proper? What is right? What is wrong? We're not talking about kosher, not kosher in food. We're talking about behavior. Who's to say that the American law or the French law is right in insisting on certain things? Maybe that's their mentality, maybe that's the way they look at things. They don't have a Torah. Some things are common sense, of course. Yes, some things are common sense. To be decent, to be a nice person, to be helpful, everybody pretty much agrees with that, pretty much. But midot can be a lot more detailed. There can be a lot more depth to them. And if one wants to know exactly how to use a midah, he has to learn Torah. Lashon hara, to speak bad about someone, even though it's not exactly under the category of midah, it's more of a maaseh, it's an actual deed, but it's similar. Without learning the halachot of Lashon hara, you may not know what to say, what yes to say, what not to say. Somebody comes and asks you about a shidduch. Is this boy a good boy for my daughter? Is this girl a good girl for my son? Right? And you have to advise him. And you know something about the family, you know something about the boy or the girl that is not good. Should you tell him? Can you tell him? Is it optional? You have to know halachot. And in this case, you may need to tell him, because otherwise you're getting him into trouble. If you can advise somebody, as long as you have no interest, as long as you're saying the truth, you have nothing to gain from this. You're not going to be exaggerating. You're going to be saying things as they are, and you're going to be objective about it, right? Then yes, go ahead. Important to tell him that he should not fall into this trap. Somebody wants to be a partner with someone. What do you think? Should I take him as a partner? And you know that this guy is not honest. You know for sure. You don't have doubts. You have to know for sure. You have to tell him. You have to help him. You have to make sure that he doesn't fall in a trap. If you don't, you're committing a sin. So without Torah, without halachot and guidelines, how will we know when to use a particular midah or how to apply certain halachot and so forth? So in Torah and derech eretz, it's not really possible to know proper derech eretz 100% in every respect. Another idea that is being expressed over here is without Torah there's no derech eretz. Without Torah, it would not be possible for us to overcome our yetzer hara, to be able to have better character, to be able to have a refined nature, to have the aspiration to always work on ourselves, to be better people. Who will motivate us? Who will tell us, be a better person, right? Don't be like that. Don't do that. Don't behave like that. Who's going to tell us? Who's going to remind to us? Only the Torah. The Torah is the one that shows us from all kinds of examples, from stories, from mitzvot, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. And we have many stories in the Torah, in the Midrashim, all kinds of stories over where the greatest stars, let's call them, made mistakes, and they are recorded in the Torah. So we should learn from them. So without the Torah, why should somebody be motivated to be a better person? So we need the Torah in order to be able to have derech eretz. Now comes the big chidush. What's interesting about this is that if an individual does not have Torah, it cannot be 100% guaranteed, and I say the word guaranteed in quotes, it cannot be 100% guaranteed good person. But I added the word guaranteed, which for a very good reason. There's a lot of people out there who have no Torah. They're not even Jewish. And they're good people. I'm sure all of you know some people like that. There have even been goyim that saved Jewish lives. Chasidei Umot Haolam. So is it possible to say that without Torah there cannot be good nature, good character? Well, I added the word guaranteed for a good reason. Has any one of you ever been in a circus? You've seen lions and bears, tigers perhaps. How come they're not biting their trainer? How come they're behaving? How come they're cooperating? These are wild animals. They're trained. Could you train an animal? Of course. They do that all the time. How many stories have you heard where the bear that was trained turned on its owner and killed him or injured him? You've heard of that too? Yeah? Especially Iranian bear? Yeah. Yeah, there are no bears there, but anyway. It can happen. Why? How does it happen? He trained him. He trained the animal. But what does to train mean? That you teach him certain things. Did you change his nature? No. The nature will remain wild. So there is a Mishnah in Baba Kama that tells us about various animals being kept as a pet. If you want to have a pet, an animal, you're responsible for it if it hurts people. If you have a pit bull, you're going to be responsible, right? If you have an ox, you may or may not be responsible for 100% damages. Depends if it's an ox that has a history of goring or not. If it doesn't have a history of goring, of hurting, you may only pay 50% damages for the first couple of times because you did your best to protect it. You know, you didn't let him out in the street, but you didn't put him behind closed doors with a lac because you didn't expect him to act. You've never seen him act like that. Now there are animals that are more domesticated and tame. And it could be with cats and certain dogs and horses. You don't expect certain things. So with any domesticated animal, as long as you did your minimum, you weren't negligent, then you may not have to pay 100%. It happens, okay. So the rabbis did not penalize you for 100% for the first couple of times. There's no history. It's not known to be such a wild animal that hurts people. But the Mishnah goes on to list several animals that if you own them as pets, hare elu mu'adim le'olam. They always are prone to hurt, and you better keep them very, very safe, at a distance from other people. Otherwise, you're 100% responsible. What are those animals? If I remember more or less by heart, lion, a leopard. Leopard means tiger or jaguar, same thing. A bear, a hyena, a snake, I think a wolf, right? These are pretty much the animals listed in the Mishnah, that if you have them as pets, just remember, Arelu Muadim Leolam. Why? I trained them. I tamed them. No. Train them, yes. Tame? No. You know the difference between to train and to tame. To tame means to take the wildness out of him. Horses are tame, usually. After a couple of years, right? They've calmed down. They're tame. They're no longer wild horses. A goat and a sheep are naturally tame. Usually they don't hurt, right? Unless you bother it or something. Same thing with a cow. They're not going to hurt you. They're naturally somewhat tame. A wild animal that kills, that usually is carnivorous especially, no guarantees, because it cannot be tamed. It's wild. It can be trained. You can show it to do certain tricks, but not to tame it. So the rabbis tell us, if you keep them as pets, you're going to be always responsible for them. Don't ever say, I had a tame tiger. There's no such thing. It's a tiger. So based on this Mishnah, you can understand what I meant before about those who have no Torah. And when I say have no Torah, I don't necessarily mean non-Jews. I gave that as an example, but it could be Jews too. Anybody who has no Torah, even though he's a good person, he acts nicely, he has a track record of 25 years of never hurting anyone, there's no guarantee that the next day he won't do it. He can kill somebody the next day. That's what happened with the Nazi party. Some of them did not hurt anybody until they joined the party, and it had a brainwash, of course. It wasn't so much of a brainwash. Somebody activated the hatred in them that is always there. It's dormant. It wasn't active. They were going to orchestras, operas, cultured people, civilized supposedly. But here something activated their hatred towards the Jews, and they were willing to kill little babies, everything. They didn't care. How does it happen overnight? Because this is a wild animal. Without Torah, what does the Torah do to a person? It's an anchor of Yirat Shamayim, of the fear of God, that tells you, don't do this. It's wrong. You're going to pay for it. You're going to be held accountable, responsible for it. Hashem sees everything you do. Without Torah in a person's life, there's no Yirat Shamayim, as we will soon see. So the derech eretz that is there, maybe it's there, is not backed up by any guarantee. That's what it means. Imen Torah and derech, there's nothing to back it up. It could be it's there. It could be he's a nice person. But if there's no Torah, who can guarantee that he will always be like this? What if you pay him $100,000 to hurt someone? He may do it for the money. All of a sudden, the derech eretz is gone, because the money was stronger than his derech eretz. Not if there's Torah. If there's real Torah, there are people who have Torah, but it's not real. If there's real Torah, then the chances are better, not 100% yet, but are better that he will back off, that he won't hurt, he won't steal. What about the other way around? En derech eretz en Torah. If there's no derech eretz, there's no Torah. What does that mean? That if a person doesn't have good character, then he has no Torah. He's very learned, he's knowledgeable, he knows everything by heart. Yeah, but if there's no good character, good nature, all that Torah will not stick to him. A person, in order to be impressed by the Torah, in order for one to get ahead in the various levels of kedusha, of purity, get closer to God, the foundation has to be there. There has to be derech eretz. Otherwise, all the Torah does not have where to sit. It won't last. He eventually will lose interest. He eventually will stop learning, perhaps, because there's no derech eretz. He has no real regard for people, and he's missing a big part of the Torah. Many of the mitzvot deal with ben adam lechavero, and others ben adam lamakom, between us and God, and some between us and our neighbors, our friends. So without derech eretz, the Torah that he has does nothing for him. What good is it? There's no value to the Torah that a person learns if he does not have derech eretz. Imagine a person that is very learned in Torah, but it's not reflected in him. He yells, or he curses, or he is abusive of his spouse, of people, or he cheats. So what's all that Torah for? And I hear this complaint from time to time from people who are not so religious. That rabbi or that guy who's so knowledgeable in Torah is dishonest. I says, well, he's not religious then. Well, he is religious. He keeps Shabbat. No, he's not, because he steals. People think religious people only keep Shabbat, they eat kosher, and their wife goes to the mikveh. To be religious and observant means everything. That you have to be honest too. And if a person is dishonest, that means one part of the Torah, a big part, he's not observing. He charges interest. Then he's not fulfilling what the Torah says. He's not religious. Right? He took revenge. The Torah says do not take revenge, right? All kinds of examples. So he can be very learned, but he doesn't practice what he preaches, or he doesn't follow through what he learned. So, imen derech eretz and Torah, obviously, if a person does not have good character, then all the Torah does him no good. It's not reflected in his behavior. And the Torah will not want to reside in such a person. The Torah will not want to be residing in an individual who doesn't have good character. It basically will leave him. It will not impress him, it will not influence him in any way. The Sefer Chovat HaLevavot, Duties of the Heart, very important sefer that deals with Musar, ethics, gives us a small example, but very important example of how to serve Hashem. If one really wants to be a servant of Hashem, one of the fundamental characteristics that he has to adapt is Midat HaKarat HaTov, is to be grateful. Gratefulness to people. If we're not going to be grateful to someone who did us a favor, how could we ever be grateful to him who does so much for us? And so therefore, how could we ever serve him? Part of serving and worshiping, right, God involves gratefulness, being thankful, to praise him. And if one does not have that midah on the low level of being appreciative of what people do, then how could we ever get to that level of being Oved Hashem? So therefore, the foundation, or one of the required levels that are needed in order to further grow in Avodat Hashem, in the service of Hashem, is to be appreciative and to have the midah, the characteristic of Hakarat HaTov. Next, in the same Mishnah, here we're seeing additional examples of if you have one and you don't have the other, you don't have the whole, you don't even have half the thing. So we need both Torah and Derech Eretz. Now we go on to Chokhmah and Yir'ah. Im en Chokhmah and Yir'ah. If there's no knowledge, Chokhmah, there cannot be fear of God. Fear of heaven is extremely important, but it's not easy. Important because obviously without it one will not follow the Torah mitzvot, at least not eagerly. Not easy because we don't see him. We don't see consequences immediately. If one keeps Shabbat or does not keep Shabbat, what happens to him? We don't see immediate consequences, so it's not something that we will have automatic. There is some fear of the unknown. a little bit, we're concerned. But it's not very, very strong. We don't necessarily see it. We don't necessarily know it for sure 100%. So it could be a very, very low level fear of what we were told. But there's a big difference between a Jew who fulfills a mitzvah because he sees, or I should say he actually knows for certain that Hashem looks over him and Hashem is present wherever he is, than with another one who does a mitzvah not even thinking about that. Hashem doesn't mind, Hashem doesn't see everything. Chaz v'shalom. Depending on a person's attitude and how much clarity he has in this, he will act differently. You have two people at work. One, the boss sees everything he does, either by remote control cameras or he's present. And one, the boss is in Hawaii on vacation. You think they're both going to work the same? The one that sees or is aware that the boss is looking at him, he's going to be careful. He's not going to have 4 cups of coffee within 2 hours, right? Coffee breaks, I should say. He's going to show that he's devoted, that he's working hard, that it's important to him, this job, that he really wants to do his best. One who doesn't care, and there's many people like that all over the world, all over, in many, many countries, you see this phenomena that people take a long break and they're on the phone for the other half of the day. Is that something you see in Iran too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why they don't get any work done.
That's right.
Yeah. In Israel, there's a job function called 804, function number 804. You come at 8, you do 0, and you leave at 4. 804. A lot of people want this kind of a job. It's terrible. It's gezel too. They're stealing from their employer. The time. So im en chokhmah en yirah. If a Jew is not learned, is not knowledgeable, doesn't have to be a Jew. Actually, it could apply to anyone. If there's no chokhmah, where he will see how beautiful the earth is in its design, in the harmony that exists, in its purposefulness. If there's no chokhmah, how could somebody ever be so impressed to develop the basic level of yirah, fear Hashem? It comes from a certain amount of being impressed and being convinced that this is real. Without chokhmah, without learning about it, there could be a little bit of yirah because your parents told you so. You were told so. As I told you before, I heard about this. Okay, there's a little yirah, but it's very, very little. It's like a small flame. You can't cook on a small flame. You can perhaps warm something up a little bit. It will take you a long time. Chokhmah is what's required to bring about the real yirah. One who does not open up a chumash or any other sefer that has to do with Chokhmat Torah, the yirah will always be very, very low key. That's a very important idea. If there's no Chokhmah, there cannot be yirat shamayim. It's impossible. Chokhmah increases one's yirah, and it gives them guidance. What about the other way around? Im en yirah en chokhmah. All right. If somebody has no yirat Hashem, he has no chokhmah. There's a lot of people who are very knowledgeable. But this is similar to what we said before with im en derech eretz en Torah. If a person has no yirah, then what good is all his chokhmah? Now, you may say, well, it's good to know. No, it's not. Knowledge by itself, as we will see later on, is not a goal. All the knowledge that we have is or that we're supposed to acquire is intended to guide us, for us to accomplish certain things. It's not just to absorb information. It's to apply it. Scientists also, they learn because they want to apply what they've learned. It's not just to know things. I've heard many Jews telling me, "Oh, Rabbi, I have a good heart." That's not what Judaism is all about. Judaism requires deeds. To put on the tefillin, to put on the mezuzah, right? To keep Shabbat, to do certain things. It's not just to know or to have a good heart. What good is it if you don't use it, if you don't apply it? So, im en chokhmah en yirah, if there's no chokhmah, there's no yirah. Im en yirah, en chokhmah. If there's no yirat shamayim, then the chokhmah that a person learned is really valueless. It has no meaning. The pasuk tells us Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. That the foundation of chokhmah, the beginning of all chokhmah, has to involve some yirat Hashem. Why? Why does it have to be the foundation, the beginning? Because if somebody's chokhmah gets ahead of his yirah, there's not so much yirah, but there's a lot of chokhmah, what will happen is that he will believe a lot in himself. And he will make mistakes. One example that every one of you know about is Shlomo HaMelech. Huh? Shlomo HaMelech. He thought he knew everything. This won't happen to me. It's okay. I'll be able to deal with it. He should have been afraid. Not that he was lacking. I'm sure he had Yirat Shamayim. But the Chokhmah got over his head too much. That he thought that the Chokhmah could save him. It couldn't. The Chokhmah cannot save. You need Yirat Shamayim. Without the Yirat Shamayim being very, very strongly developed and being in first position, being the foundation of the Chokhmah, then the Chokhmah can be very useful. The Chokhmah can be very useful, but the foundation has to be Yirat Shamayim. Otherwise, people can make mistakes. A lot of individuals who are even religious have made mistakes in their outlook, in the way they look at things in life, in giving an opinion about a particular topic, subject matter, and it's wrong. Their opinion is wrong. It's not da Torah. It's not the outlook of Torah. How did they come to this mistake? Because they have absorbed all kinds of information from all kinds of sources. They went to college, they read secular books, and I think it was the Chafetz Chaim said, it's very dangerous to do that. Today, of course, a lot of people do that. A lot of people go to colleges, a lot of people read all kinds of books, they see internet, they read newspapers, because of life has changed, but the danger is always going to remain. Even though it may be permissible today, and it's become part of life today, we must recognize that there's a danger there. The danger is that the human mind is susceptible to absorb all kinds of opinions, thoughts, ideas, and he's influenced. And because he's influenced, he cannot know for certain 100% if his opinions are pure Torah opinions, even though he's backing it up with all kinds of sources. So what? Are you really, really sure that those are all the sources? What about the other ones who say differently? If there is Yirat Shamayim, very, very strong Yirat Shamayim, being fearful, being careful, cautious, and the utmost respect for Torah and for the Chachamim, then a person's whole mindset and his whole approach to the subject will be different. If he says, if a person's attitude is, the rabbis didn't know, any attitude like that, or even close to that, shows disrespect. And disrespect is a lack of Yirat Shamayim, obviously. Where did he get it from? How did he get to that? He's religious. And so are his parents, and he went to Jewish school. Yeah, but it happens in life. The exposure that people have in life, but from to all kinds of things, can cause a certain dent in that individual's Torah hashkafa, or in that individual's Yirat Shamayim even, whatever little bit he had. Because the Yirat Shamayim was not the foundation. It was weak to begin with, and it could not stand up to all those influences. Some of these ideas we already learned in Mishnah Yud Aleph, so I'm not going to repeat them too much. I'm just going to bring out the main point. In Mishnah Yud Aleph, actually it's Mishnah here, it's Mishnah Tet. Tachanina ben Dosa tells us about whoever's fear comes before his chokhmah, or whoever's chokhmah comes before his fear. The Yirat Shamayim, very similar. The Yirat Shamayim should always be there first. Otherwise, chas v'shalom, it can happen in life that a person will be challenged and tested, and I'll talk about that soon in the next Mishnah, and he will not be able to withstand the challenge. It will be too great. too powerful. Why? Because the Yirat Shamayim was not strong enough. And all this Chokhmah did not help him. Chokhmah cannot help one with Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim can help with the Chokhmah. And I gave you many examples. One example is somebody did not have any earnings in the last 6 months. No earnings, not $1. He's a real estate broker. And all of a sudden he has the lifetime opportunity to make 2% or 3% on a big estate in Bel Air. $25 million estate. 2%, 3%. That's a nice commission, right? There was only one catch. The owner tells him, you better come Friday night and sign, otherwise I give it to another agent. Friday night? Can't you wait till Saturday night? No. You have to come now. That's the only time I have. Either you come or you lose it. So the guy who has Chokhmah before Yirat Shamayim said, wait a minute, I remember when I learned Hilchot Shabbat that I can sign with my left hand. Shinui. It's not true, by the way. But he starts looking for all kinds of ways. He wants his money. One who has proper Yirat Shamayim and good and healthy hashkafot, what does he say to himself? This money is not meant for me. I told a very cute story. It pays to repeat it on Shabbat. Is Shabbat or on Yom Kippur? I forget. No. Recently. About bitachon b'Hashem, having trust in Hashem. I think that in Farsi they call it tovakol, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be the best word for bitachon b'Hashem. Anyway, there was somebody who had a lot of bitachon b'Hashem. A lot of trust in God and everything. He had a small apartment. And he was happy. Small, okay. What really bothered him was that he was far from his work, far from his wife's job, far from his kids' school. And therefore, all his prayers was mostly focused on this. Hashem, Borei Olam, please, let me find a house, at least, I don't care about the size, so at least that it's close to my job, close to my wife's job, close to the school, forget about the size. Close is important. One day, Baruch Hashem, he sees an ad, a pirsomet, an ad in the paper. Exactly what he's looking for. Perfect, location-wise. And the price is very reasonable. So he says, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. He calls up the guy. Yes, how can I help you? Yeah, about the ad. He says, that house was just sold a half an hour ago. Oh, you can imagine how he felt. He felt terrible. Terrible. Half an hour ago? How could I lose it? Half an hour? He goes over to his rabbi. Rabbi, I know this house was not meant for me. He has bitachon, we said, right? I know this house was not meant for me. But why did God let me see it in the newspaper? I'd rather have not known about it. So what did the rabbi tell him? This is a test. That's all it was, is a test. You're right, it wasn't meant for you. But it's a test. There are tests in life. All the time, tests, challenges, to see how strong we are. We claim we're strong, it won't happen. I'll be okay. I'll resist the pressure. Okay, let's see. Here's the opportunity. Shabbat, sign. It's not meant for me. That's the right thing. This is not meant for you. People don't understand. In the other one, example I use is, on Shabbat, somebody sees a $100 bill on the street. What do? So it depends if the one who finds it is Persian, Iraqi, American, or Israeli.
Sit on the line.
That's the Persian one, right? Sit on it, right? You could do that, by the way, you could do that if it's Saturday afternoon, 1 hour before Shabbat is over. But what if it's Friday night? You're going to sit there a whole night? Yeah. Anyway, the Israeli might say, I'll kick it into the bushes. Anyway, people will react differently. But what about that it's not meant for you? It's Shabbat. It's muktzeh. You can't pick it up, right? You can't definitely not carry it, especially if there's no eruv. then it's not meant for you. Now, if it's very easily to just disguise it, okay, you may be able to get away with it. It could happen. It's not in the street, it's in the side, but anyway. But the idea is, don't you think this might be a challenge or a test? That's what people forget. We all get into all kinds of situations where we are being tested all the time. So if there's no Yirat Shamayim kodemet lechokhmato, as we saw in the previous Mishnah, or if there's no Yirah at all as a foundation, the various challenges in life, Chaz v'Shalom, will defeat us. In other words, we won't be able to withstand them. It will be difficult. Another example is all those Jews that came from Eastern Europe to this country at the turn of the 20th century, looking for work, looking for livelihood, looking to establish themselves, and they were confronted with a big challenge of working on Shabbat. In those days, before Eisenhower, there was no long weekend. And if you did not come on Saturday, you had a pink slip on Monday. So the Ashkenazi Jew gave up many times. And his grandchildren today intermarried and assimilated. Many Sephardic Jews didn't give up. He says, oh, you don't want to take me if I don't come Saturday? I'm going to work for myself. And they became peddlers, selling shmatas and the like. And today, their grandchildren are all Jewish. They're not all Shomer Shabbat 100%, but at least they're Jewish. They kept Shabbat, the grandfather kept Shabbat, it stuck to them a lot more. He didn't give up Shabbat, he was willing to sacrifice. Look how it paid off. That's why Yirat Shamayim has to be there, and not only has to be there, has to be there in first position before the Chokhmah. The next one, Im en bina en dat, im en dat en bina. Most of you have heard of the word Chabad. Chabad stands for Chokhmah, Bina, Vada'at. Chokhmah is knowledge, Bina is understanding. So what's Da'at? So some will translate that as the power of reasoning. Not necessarily. That really means, according to the Kabbalah, to internalize that which we have understood and that which we know. Is to make it a part of us. Right? It says by Adam and Chava, when Adam was intimate with Chava, it says, Vayeda Adam et ishto. He knew her. They became one. He internalized it. So that is the highest level of taking the knowledge and not only understanding it, but internalizing it, applying it, making it a part of you, not something that's external. Okay, I know about it. No. It becomes a part of you. That's a simple understanding of that. Here, however, apparently, that here is being interchangeable with Chokhmah, according at least to some interpretations. Imen bina in dat, imen dat in bina. So we take knowledge, Chokhmah, or dat, in this case, and what do we do with the raw knowledge? We try to understand it. We try to gain some insight into it. Not just to know it, but to understand it. That's called bina. Bina is taking what we know and trying to understand or to infer from it additional things. How does this apply to this? What can we do now that we know this halakha? How does this apply here? That's called bina. Lidbonen means to look deep and to reflect on something, not just to know it. So in bina, if a person does not reflect and does not attempt to understand, as in dat doesn't make any sense. The dat is as though it does not exist. Even though there was, it doesn't serve any purpose. We gain knowledge, we learn Gemara, we learn halachot, we learn chumash, but we don't just read it and know it, we want to understand it too. It's a big shame. I tell people who read the Siddur and don't understand what they're saying. Similar. So they know it by heart, they can pronounce it very well, but there's no bina. What did I just say? Some powerful words, chaval, that one did not understand and look deeper into it. So in en bina, there's no dat. Imen dat en bina. If there's no dat, so there's no bina. What does that mean? What good is it that I can understand things if I don't have knowledge to begin with? There's a lot of smart people out there. A lot of smart people, they have good reasoning abilities. They're able to analyze, they're able to take things apart. but you cannot draw any conclusions. Any conclusions, real conclusions, unless you have the da'at. I've had people comment on all kinds of things that I've said in certain lectures, in the internet or in class, all kinds of comments about some very, very complex topics, complex subjects. And they don't necessarily feel comfortable or like something that I said, and perhaps even disagree. And usually my reaction to them is, with all due respect, have you learned the topic? Have you studied it? No. Then you don't really have a right to express an opinion. Because to give an opinion, a good opinion that is, should come from someone who's knowledgeable, who has read the material, who's familiar with it. And you know what? After reading, after learning, after knowing it very well, I give you another opinion. That's fine, that's acceptable. But without knowing, how could you give an opinion? In that, if there's no knowledge about a topic, in binah, how could you use your binah, lasik maskanot, to draw any conclusions, to give an opinion? There is none. I mean, it's futile. It serves no purpose because there's no doubt. Next, im en kemach en Torah. Im en Torah en kemach. This is also something that is not very well understood. I mean, on the surface, it's quite simple. Im en Torah en kemach. Im en kemach en Torah. What is that? What does that flour have to do with Torah? Flour has to do with sustenance, with food, with being able to survive. Here he's telling us, in kemach en Torah, in order for the Torah to flourish, in order for a person to be able to learn, it helps greatly if he's able to have what to eat. I mean, it does not exist in a vacuum. You have to work, you have to have some money, you have to have a way to support yourself. In kemach, that's a simple interpretation. How could there be Torah? In other words, without the bare minimums at least, it's going to be very difficult. There's something called, in Hebrew, archavat hada'at. It's a very special word. I don't know really the exact translation in other languages. The closest one to archavat hada'at in Farsi, perhaps, I can tell it to you in Arabic. Or in Arabic, there's something called rahat al-bal. Rahat al-bal means menuchat or shalvat ha-nefesh. And in Farsi, that is chiyal rohat. Okay? Right? You heard of that? Yeah. That's peace of mind. That's the closest one that comes to mind over here. Peace of mind. Even though the word harchavat hada'at is much more than that. It means when a person has Baruch Hashem, he has a roof over his head. He has the basics, the needs. And he has peace of mind. He has certain tranquility. Harchavat hada'at. His mind is, Baruch Hashem, wide, broad. It's not narrow, it's not pressured. He's able to learn with more at ease. He doesn't have pressures than somebody who's really struggling. Even though it's true, the rabbis tell us later that Torah is acquired through tremendous struggle and effort. That is a different idea. That means you have to work hard. But it helps so much to be able to have archavat hada'at, peace of mind, not pressures, because then one is able to think a little bit better. I remember reading once a story about, I think it was the Rashash, one of the commentaries that you find in the back of the Gemara, who happened to be a very well-to-do rabbi. He had some businesses, perhaps. I don't know how he made his money, but he was well-to-do. Maybe he inherited. And he was, of course, a big rabbi. And he wrote a very nice commentary on the Talmud. And when somebody saw it, this commentary, he said that this rabbi wrote what he wrote bitoch archavat hada'at. He must have had peace of mind. He must have had tranquility. Why? Because beautiful things that were, you can tell he had no pressure. You know, the Sefer Minchat Chinuch, which is a beautiful, very important, beautiful commentary on the Sefer HaChinuch, or the mitzvot, the Tamei mitzvot, the reason, was known to be a very, very poor fellow. I mean, in those days, a lot of people who were poor, they didn't have paper to buy, to write. So whatever piece of paper they found, tissues, or that's where they wrote what they wrote. Then they put it all together. You know, it's interesting, you know. If you think about how primitive today, in those days it was. So anyway, so this author, who wrote an incredible masterpiece, is known to have written his commentary with a lot of Rashi Tevot, a lot of, in English, abbreviations. You know, instead of writing the whole word, abbreviate it. Right? Be'ezrat Hashem, Bet Ein Hey, he said, right? But a lot more than the usual, because he was so poor. He didn't want to spend more and more paper. It's incredible. You know, so Arhavat Da'at is something very, very good to have. Not everybody has it, but so that's one meaning. Im en Torah, im en kemach en Torah. You do need the kemach to be able to have Torah. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says on these words, if there's no food, if the economy is doing bad, im en kemach, it's because there's no Torah. In other words, he gives this whole different twist. You want to know why the economy is doing bad, why people are not doing well? Im en kemach, because there's no Torah. But that's already another interpretation. What about im en Torah en kemach? Well, you can say similar to the Orach Chaim. If there's no Torah, there will not be kemach. Chaz v'shalom. People do not learn Torah, they don't put away time for Torah, then they will lose in other ways. Because everything is b'zchut Torah. But here is a very, very interesting interpretation, totally different interpretation, im en Torah en kemach. First of all, if there's no Torah, then life does not have the same meaning. What's the purpose of all the kemach, of all the luxuries, of all the things that we try to accumulate in life if there's no Torah? That's one interpretation, that the kemach doesn't have any value. The food, the possessions. Another idea, however, is in en Torah en kemach. If a person does not learn Torah, then he will never be satisfied. He will never have kemach, meaning he will always want more and more and more money. Like they say in English, if you have 1 million, you want 2 million. So in en Torah en kemach, he will always feel it's not enough. He will not be satisfied. Without Torah, a person will always feel that something is missing. And a lot of people who have done teshuvah have come to this conclusion. Something is missing in their life. They have money, they have everything they ever wanted and desired. But without Torah, they'll feel something, they'll feel a hunger. And it's not they might initially think that they're unhappy or hungry because they want another car. They want another wife. They want more this, more that, a bigger house. Initially, that's what people think. What's going to make them happy? So here he's telling us an additional important idea, that without Torah, you're going to feel something is missing. And until you learn Torah, you will realize what you were missing. You were missing spirituality in your life. You were missing ruchaniut. So something will always be missing without Torah. An individual cannot be completely happy if he doesn't have Torah. Once he learns Torah, he will discover what he was missing. This is similar to the story of Rabbi Israel Salanter, who once met someone and he asked that individual, are you learning? How much are you learning? He says, Rabbi, I don't have any time to learn. I'm very busy, from the morning till the night. I'm tired. Rabbi, but I do have 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I could really learn something. I said, Baruch Hashem, you have 15 minutes? Yes, Rabbi, but Rabbi, what should I learn in those 15 minutes? Kabbalah? Chumash? Halacha? Which one do you, it's only 15 minutes. So the Rabbi tells you only have 15 minutes? Yeah. If you have 15 minutes, he says, learn Musar. Says, Rabbi, Musar of all things, Musar? He says, yeah, see, if you learn Musar, ethics, you will discover you have more than 15 minutes. Yeah, it will rebuke you, it will show you, it will point out to you how much you spent reading the sports section of the LA Times every day, how much you spent reading this and doing that. You only have 15 minutes. The Musar will give it to you. That's why Musar is so important. So through the learning of the Musar, through the learning of the Torah, we discover many, many things that we would not have known. All right, the last part of the Mishnah. Here it's all one Mishnah, but in some places it's a separate Mishnah. This is also similar to what we covered before. It gives us a little bit of a different mashal. Hu haya homer, the same rabbi, used to say, Kol shechochmato merubeh mima'asav, whoever's deeds. I'm going to first translate it and then we'll go into it. Whoever's chokhmah, I should say, whoever's knowledge is greater than his deeds, mima'asav, lema'u domeh, to what is he compared to? His knowledge, he's very, very knowledgeable, but he barely does anything. Ma'asim, deeds. His knowledge is greater than his ma'asim. What is he compared to? He's compared to li'ilan, to a tree, sha'anafav merubin v'shorashav mu'atin. A tree that has many branches. Well, that's good. Shade. All right. Shorashav mu'atin, but he has very, very weak root system, or very few roots. What happens to such a tree when the ruach ba, when a strong wind comes? Ruach ba ve'okarto. The wind will uproot it, ve'ofachto al panav, and she will turn it over. שנאמר ויקר ארבע ערבה ולא יראה כי יבוא טוב ושכן חררים במדבר ארץ מלאכה ולא תשב. A pasuk in Yirmiyahu about a tree, a lone tree by itself in the heat of the desert, in a place which is completely desolate without any moisture. This kind of a tree cannot survive. Whoever's deeds are greater than his wisdom, what is he compared to? To a tree, shanafav muatin. He doesn't have that many branches. Remember, he has little chokhmah, but he has b'shorashav merubin. He has a lot of roots. Shafilu kol haruchot sheba'olam ba'ot v'noshvot bo en mezizot oto mimkomo. Even if all the winds of the world come and try to knock him down, they will not be able to. Shene'emar. Imagine a tree that is planted or growing next to a stream of water, and it sends off its branches close to the streams of water. In other words, it's always going to be kept moist because of the proximity to the water. He doesn't even notice whenever it becomes hot, because the leaves are always fresh and green. If there's not enough rain, it also is not worried because it's next to water. And it will continuously produce fruit because of where it is. Very nice. So this tree is lucky. This tree has a benefit of being close to water. It doesn't have a lot of branches, but it has strong roots. And the roots reach the waters, and the roots are well anchored in the ground. So here he's telling us that there are two types of individuals. One who's very knowledgeable, has a lot of chokhmah, but very few ma'asim. And one who has few branches, meaning he has little chokhmah, but he has a lot of ma'asim. Who is the one that's better off? Better off for what? We're talking about emunah. We're talking about withstanding challenges here. We're talking about one that has a better chance of persevering as a Jew. That's why this is an important mashal. The chokhmah will not do it. Take the example of a powerful wind. What's a powerful wind that can knock down a tree? A storm, right? A hurricane, a tornado. The Holocaust was a powerful wind. Do you know how many Jews lost their faith because of it? Because of it, just where was God? You've heard of that? Yeah? Now, how could it be that a Jew should lose his faith just like that? It means that the roots were weak to begin with. They were not strong. So all you need when the roots are shallow or not strong is a wind or a strong wind like a Holocaust, which was a mystery to them, which was a shock to them and a tragedy altogether, and it knocked them down. They couldn't take it. Had they seen a home of self-sacrifice, where the mother said a little prayer and shed tears before she lit the candles, where she went to the mikveh, sometimes there was no mikveh, she broke the ice, the cold ice of the river, and traveled 5-10 miles to get there. If the kids knew about those kinds of self-sacrifice, that their mother or father sold the jewelry, the silver in the house, so that kids can have a Jewish education, if they saw that at home, they would never be defeated. Not all the winds of the world can knock down somebody like that, because the roots are strong and deep for many generations. Similar to Shir HaShirim. Mayim Rabbim lo yichlu lechabot et ha'ahava. Not all the waters in the world can extinguish the love between us and Hashem. It's a very, very strong connection. Right? It appears that Hashem has left us, but He did not leave us. He's metzitz min ha'harakim, mashgiach min ha'halonot. He's there in the background, looking out for us, waiting for us to return to Him. But He has never abandoned us because our connection with Him is very strong, goes back a long time. And all the years are full of sacrifice for Him. Yes, so there have been some who have left Him, but that does not undo the relationship. So same thing here. If a Jew has strong roots, the chances are better that he will not fail. It can happen to anyone. People break down. People have emotional breakdowns, nervous breakdowns. But rabbis tell us and warn us, don't think that you're weak. Hashem will never put one through a test that he cannot withstand. Never. He's penniless. You can deal with it. Hashem will help you. Don't give up. Never give up. Never give up. Because Hashem does not put anyone through any challenge that he cannot take, that he cannot deal with. Somehow he will be helped. Somehow he will manage. Somehow it will be okay. But here you have an individual who doesn't have so much ma'asim, deeds, all kinds of deeds. All he has is chokhmah. That philosophy, that knowledge will not help you when it comes to challenges. Because chokhmah does not strengthen emunah. Chokhmah does not build the person. Ma'asim builds the person. The deeds, they build the person. Because when a person does more and more of something, the Sefer HaChinuch says, "Achrei ha'peulot nimshachot ha'levavot." Our hearts are affected by the deeds that we perform. You give $1,000. Instead of giving it to one poor man, you give $1 to 1,000 people. Right? We learned that. Right? You will be not only helping 1,000 people, you are training yourself to be more of a giver by doing it 1,000 times versus doing it once. So we see that ma'asim have a tremendous effect on us more than just the chokhmah, the learning. Of course, we have to learn in order to know what to do. But the ikar is to do. And that is why the rabbis tell us that the Jewish people got so much credit for saying na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and then we will listen. How could you do and then listen? Listen first. No. We will do even if we don't understand. We will continue to do, always and always trying to see how we can do better, how we can improve our ma'asim, how we can do more ma'asim. Because the ma'asim is the ikar. So why is he compared here to a tree? Because a tree's nourishment comes from the truth, from the roots. That's where it gets all the nourishment, right? It comes up the roots, from the ground. A man is compared to a tree in many ways. Man also gets his nourishment through the roots. The roots here being his ma'asim, his deeds. That's what builds him. That's what gives him the nourishment, not the chokhmah, not all the knowledge and wisdom. The deeds are the ones that build him. Anyway, so that is why the rabbis tell us tachlit, chokhmah, tshuva, ma'asim tovim. I think, if I recall, that the main goal of all the chokhmah that we learn is that we should be able to perform good deeds, because that's the ikar of being a Jew, is to perform, to do deeds. That's the essence of man. Even though they, of course, will inquire about how much he learned, how much time he devoted to Torah, but they will more inquire, did he use it? Did he put it to practice? Otherwise, it's not really worth anything. We're learning is because we want to use it in some important way. All right, the last Mishnah doesn't appear to be like a big Mishnah, but it's a very, very powerful message, even though it's only a couple lines. Very important message here. Rabbi Eliyahu ben Chesma omer kininu pitchei nida hen gufei halachot gufot v'gimatriot parparaot lachokhmah. All right, we spoke a lot about chokhmah now. There's all kinds of chokhmah. There's chokhmah in the world. There's chokhmah in Judaism. A lot of chokhmah. And as you know, every neshama is pulled in a different direction as to where to specialize and which chokhmah to acquire the most. We need to learn a little bit of everything, but there's always a certain inclination. Some people love halakha. They love to know, they know halachot very well. Other people know Gemarot. People who are in charge of yeshivot, they have to know Gemara. They have to know how to teach the Gemara. They're very good at that. Then you have the Mekubalim. They know a little bit of Gemara too. They learn halachot. But they specialize in Kabbalah. Things that for other people, Kabbalah, it's too difficult. There are those who love the Chumash and the Midrash, the Drashot. Right? There's others who are more into the Musar, ethics. There's different areas of Chokhmah in Judaism. Important to know a little bit of everything, but everybody will end up usually specializing or emphasizing one area more than the other. So Rabbi Eliezer tells us now that we spoke about the importance of Chokhmah, but in relation to Ma'asim, obviously we said that it's limited. Nevertheless, let's go talk a little bit about Chokhmah too. You're going to learn Torah, you're going to learn Chokhmah. What should you learn? He says like this, listen, even though there's a lot of Chokhmah out there, kininu Pirkei nida hen kufei halachot. Just be careful to value your time properly and to know what's really important in life. When it comes to importance of Chokhmah, there's a lot of it out there. Don't forget that the most important one is kininu Pirkei nida. What's that? He gives us two examples here of one of the most complex areas of halakha and mishnayot in the whole Shas. Kinin deals with the korbanot that women who gave birth would bring to the Bet HaMikdash. Pirkei nida deals with the women during their unclean and clean cycles, and the various halachot that can make it a very complex subject. Nida. So he says these halachot, the complex ones, these are the main halachot. This requires to toil, this requires one to learn, this is what one should know about and spend time on. Tkufot v'gimatriot parparaot lachokhmah. Astronomy in gimatria, you know what gimatria is? The numerical value of words, and things that are similar to gimatria. This is dessert, he says. When you call something dessert, what do you mean? You mean you serve it at the end of the meal, right? So he says, don't rush to the Kabbalah center to learn Kabbalah. Wait. First learn Chumash, learn some halachot, learn Gemara. Then you want to learn Kabbalah? Okay, go learn Kabbalah. There are people who rush to learn Kabbalah, which is very good, by the way. Kabbalah is very important. And certain aspects of it, everyone should learn and know. Especially today in Imot HaMashiach, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Zohar says, will open up the gates for us to delve into this Chokhmah and to draw from the wellspring of Sodot HaTorah. And Baruch Hashem, in every generation, there are those who disseminate it through books and through classes. And there's different kinds, of course, of classes. I'm not going to recommend any one in particular one right now. But there definitely is some benefit that one can derive or gain from learning Kabbalah, for sure. But it has to be kept for later on, at a later stage. In the initial stages, one has to become a little bit more familiar with the basics if he's Jewish. Otherwise, how will he know how to keep Shabbat? How to keep a kosher kitchen, right? So, Kininu Pirkei nida, he reminds us, he uses this as an example to tell us, listen, in life, there is Ikar and Tafel. Ikar means the important one, and that which is not as important, or that which is secondary. You eat an ice cream cone. Vanilla with chocolate chip and strawberry. They call it Neapolitan, I think. Whatever, your favorite. It's in a cone. What beracha are you going to make? Not mezonot?
No.
The cone is mezonot and the ice is shakol.
The main thing is ice cream. You want it's secondary. That's one.
The ice cream is the main one, not the cone?
Yes, no, not the cone.
So what's the cone?
Cones is substitute, something additional. But the main thing is the ice cream.
Yeah. The
You
cone.
always look for the main.
Yeah. The cone, that's right, that's the halakha, or berachot, that you do it on the main. The cone is just to hold the ice cream instead of a cup, and it has a little flavor too. But this one is a little easier than other examples. What if you're eating cereal? There's milk, and you have Cheerios. What beracha are you going to make, on the milk or on the Cheerios or on both?
Both.
Cheerios.
Shackle.
Cheerios is usually, the cereal is usually the ikar. But sometimes people want to have the milk too. So they may need, in some cases you may have to make both berachot, especially if you're going to have a lot of milk. That's how you know that you value the milk too. You may have a soup, a vegetable soup, right? Or you have a gourmet sabzi, you have it there. Yeah, yeah, your favorite, no?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have all these berachot there. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. What berachah do you make on Sholzar? Huh? Huh? Why? Can you recognize anything there? I don't recognize, except I see yellow, only yellow.
You know it's rice.
You know it's rice. Yeah. Anyway.
Which one is it?
Well, I gotta ask somebody like you. I don't know. Anyway, it could be mezonot, but sometimes the paste, because it's so mushy, it's changed. It's become something else. So we need to see what it is, especially if there's other ingredients. I don't really know the ingredients. That's why I asked you. But anyway, so when you have a lot of ingredients, there's a different concept. There's a concept of rov. What's the majority? Because you can have adama, you can have she'akol, like when you have lentils, and you have rice, and you have some beans, and you have some meat. You see what I mean? You may have some dishes that have a mixture of everything, and then if you cannot recognize them, if they're not all identifiable per se, especially the small pieces, you may need to make the beracha on the rov, the majority of what is. Otherwise, I mean, you can you're not going to be separating it out, each individual thing. So in ilchot berachot, you have either the main, or you have the rov, or obviously you also have a situation where it is what it is, but it may no longer be its original beracha because it has changed the way it appears. Right? Some breads, you've made French toast into them, but it's still retained, it still looks like a bread. Okay? Some things no longer look like a bread because you've made you've made gondi from them, maybe. You put it in there. Yeah, I mean, it's not, you don't recognize it. They tell you it has bread crumbs in it. Huh? Yeah. What about if you have palok keshmesh?
That's easy.
Are you going to make a berachah the keshmesh? You see what I mean? So you have to know the halachot of all these things. What's the ikar? The ikar is really an important idea in berachot. And the same is true with learning, and the same is true with life in general. There's a lot of things. And the average person lives to 78 if it's a woman, and if it's a man, 58. No, I'm just joking. That's a shalom. Anyway, they say sometimes less. Actually, if a man has a good wife, they say he has a long life. Huh? If he has a good woman, it makes a big difference. Huh? And what about the other way around? If a woman has a good husband? Anyway, so what's the average lifespan? 70-something? There's no time to do everything. We have to always focus on the ikar. They always try. And one of the biggest difficulties that some people have, including myself, we like all kinds of things. We like to learn all kinds of things, and we have many interests, is that you become scattered and you don't accomplish too much if you continue that way too long, too much time. Focus. If you want to accomplish, you want to achieve something, focus, get it done, get it out of the way, and then go on to something else. Focus, because there's no time. There's no time. Focus, because before you know it, you're spending time reading your mail, opening the mail, internet, news, eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, phone calls, putting gas in your car, paying bills. The day's over. I mean, you have to have some sleep. You go to the restroom, take a shower, learn, pray. I mean, there's not that much time to do anything. We don't think about it. And the year's over. And for those of you who haven't heard it, there's a joke in Yiddish. I'll tell it to you in English. There was once a guy on Sunday who on Monday wanted to travel on Tuesday. But on Wednesday he realized that it's already Thursday. So on Friday he decided to stay for Shabbat. You see how they Sunday to Shabbat, it's over, the week is over. Yeah, you can't. We can't play around. So Rabbi Elazar tells us, listen, kininu b'tchei nida hen hei gufei halachot. That's the most important. Learn halachot. We need to learn halachot. Kufot v'gimatriot, there's a lot of wisdom out there, a lot of knowledge. Astronomy, wow. And astronomy is important. The Torah says, the Goyim will admire you if you show that you're knowledgeable in this area that they know a little bit about too. Yeah, but this is not the Ikar. Why isn't that much Ikar too? Only because science does not give you the answers to life. You ask a scientist, with all due respect, I know you're great, you're a genius, you've discovered all these things. Can you tell me what life is for? What's the purpose of life? Why are you asking me that kind of a question? That's right. You shouldn't be asking him because he doesn't have the answers. Science does not have the answers to what we're expected to do. What is life all about? That's the Torah. So all these things are good, they're valuable, but be careful not to overemphasize them because the Ikar, kininu p'tchei nida, they are the main halachot. Kol halomed halachot, kol hashoneh halachot b'chol yom, we say in the prayer, muftach lo shuv ben olam haba. If you learn halachot every day, you will have a share to the world to come. Why? Because if you learn halachot, you'll know how to behave. You'll know how to conduct yourself. You know how to be observant, how to keep the mitzvot. Without the basic knowledge of halachot, how can one know how to keep Shabbat? What is permissible and what's not? That is why I think it's a very good way of finishing the Perek by telling us the value of Torah over everything else. This is the Ikar. Everything else is tafil in comparison to it. So since this is the Ikar, that is where Bezat Hashem Allah should spend most of our time. Thank you.
Amen.
Jazakum.